Hello there sexy PlayStation gamers and welcome to another video by Pure PlayStation. Obviously this time it's not Jason and his lovely tones, it is me, Chris, instead. Different voice, different content, I'm afraid. So what's this about today? It's Splinter Cell on PS4 needs to learn a few lessons from Die Hard. Die Hard, Splinter Cell, completely different things, yet if they were merged together we'd be in gaming heaven. There's a new Splinter Cell coming. There is a new game. It's on its way. We know it. You know it. Everyone knows it. Ubisoft definitely knows it. They just don't want to tell us yet. Not yet. Not properly. We had a big hint this week with Sam Fisher popping up in Ghost Recon Wildlands. And, come on, there's only one reason to do such a crossover, and that is for cross-promotion. It's coming. Don't worry. Just believe. With that all said, I'm equal parts thrilled and nervous. This is Ubisoft, after all, and we all know that Ubisoft loves its big open worlds. Most of the big stuff being pumped out from Ubisoft is open world these days, and that's easy enough to explain. If it's open world, there's a lot more value to the player. Yes, I know, that's not strictly true for everyone in every game, but maybe there's a better phrasing. If it's an open world, there's the potential for more value. Open world games are ideal for lengthy solo player expansions just by their very nature. Ubisoft knows this and Ubisoft has cracked that code. That's not me putting them down, not at all, it's actually quite a compliment. Ubisoft it's quickly become one of the most focused publishers when it comes to post-release support. Look at Rainbow Six as a prime example. You know, it's year 3 and there's still more content coming. It's great, but you can also look at recent games like Assassin's Creed Origins and Far Cry 5 to see that Ubisoft is all about playing the long game. But what does all of this have to do with Splinter Cell? Or Die Hard? Hear me out. Die Hard is one of the greatest movies ever made. I'm talking about the OG Die Hard, the one that made Bruce Willis a very famous man, and taught me as a child that all problems can be resolved with violent gunfights and awesome yippee-ki-yays. It's just a good thing I grew up in Wales, really. Not a lot of guns around. Quite safe. I've always looked at Die Hard as being a video game movie that just didn't have a video game behind it. I know it sounds mad, but think about it. Die Hard takes place in a huge building that has many levels. Literally levels, like in a video game. Come on. Then there's the hero, John McClane. He's an everyday cop who just happens to be in the right place at the right time. Well, you could call it wrong place, wrong time, because it's not the best situation to be in, but whatever. But he's just a regular guy. He's not some beefed up war hero. He's a regular man. He bleeds and he cries. He's a character that most of us can relate to. I say most of us because I don't bleed or cry. Fact. But what does he sound like? He sounds like the perfect video game protagonist. Look at Uncharted. Nathan Drake, everyday man, who just happens to kill thousands and thousands of men, but other than that, he's quite a relatable guy. Then there's the bad guys, the grunts, the lackeys. Most of them aren't very important and they don't get given that much attention, but a few of them are obviously higher up in the bad guy hierarchy. You've got Carl and his brother, Tony, who are shown to be prominent baddies early on. Before I carry on, quick spoiler alert. It's been 30 years now. Die Hard came out in 1988. We're now in 2018. If you haven't seen the movie yet, I don't know what you've been doing, but there will be spoilers here and I'm going to ruin the film for you. So if you haven't seen it, just go and watch it and then come back to this video. So, where were we? Yeah. You've got your obvious henchmen. One of them, Tony's brother. Tony gets killed and he is the brother of Carl. And that gives, Carl really hates this guy now. He's like, I'm gonna kill this guy. He tears the room apart. He's pissed. And then we've got the big bad boss, Hans. And he's more of a pagan min kind of bad guy. In Die Hard land, he's the pagan min. He's classy, well-spoken, very clever, and he's got the undivided attention of anyone in the room. He's a perfect villain, basically. And he was a great villain. I really, looking back, one of the best villains I've ever seen on film. I could go on and on and on, but you know what I mean. My point is that Die Hard is structured in such a way that story and action flow seamlessly without there being any sort of massive jarring takeaways. You can't say the same for Die Hard 4 or its piss poor follow-up Die Hard 5. They get the action scenes nailed down. That's fun, it's mindless action, cool, whatever. But story-wise, we're looking at an old man running around being angry, basically. Now, look at the Splinter Cell games. The first one was phenomenal when it released. Back in the day, I played it on the original Xbox. The second one was alright, and then Chaos Theory was just amazing. After that, the series did go downhill. There was the piss poor PSP game, which I bought for the PS Vita, thinking it would be great. It was shit. Then we got Double Agent, which wasn't a critical hit. I found it to be pretty decent when it came to the story. It had quite a sort of 24 angle on it. I like that. And then we had Conviction and Blacklist. I'll sort of bundle them together as they're the most recent games, and they do share a lot of common ground. In that they both have an older Sam Fisher in a new world. Sam, much like John McClane, has weirdly, in these new games where he's much older, he's gotten more sprightly. Think about it. In the original movie, McClane was just a lucky son of a bitch who survived against the odds. There was nothing special about him. He didn't do parkour. He'd jump out of a window with a bloody fire reel wrapped around his belly, and that was out of desperation. It was that or get shot. He had no bloody choice. Skip to Die Hard 4, and he shoots a car at a helicopter. Yeah. He's gone from being a plucky little cop to, I'm going to drive this car into a helicopter. Not drive it into a helicopter, he launches it 30, 40 feet in the air. It's ridiculous. And he's got more tricks up his sleeves. He seems smarter, and he fights like Jason Bourne has been training him in hand-to-hand combat. It's such a jar away. And then you look at Sam Fisher. In the old games, he was quite, he was already an old man. He had the grey hair, the grizzly voice, and that let us know that he's been sneaking around for a long time. This guy is a pro. He doesn't piss around. He's been doing this a while. And he's not the most agile of men either, and it wasn't just a technical limitation of the times. We had games where people were all sorts of fancy stuff. But, Sam Fisher didn't need to do that. He didn't need to run and jump over stuff at great speeds. He didn't know how to parkour. Not properly. He did like little jumps at stuff and whatnot. But for the main part, he got along fine just by being a sneaky old bastard. Yeah? And then in Blacklist, the most recent game, he runs around like he's 20 years old. It's ridiculous. He's climbing and all sorts of fancy stuff that just seems really out of place. And it didn't help that Ironside wasn't there to do Sam's voice, and they changed Sam's look, so he ended up looking younger, but he also looked like he'd been smacked in the face with the flattest shovel ever made. And he acted younger too, and he was doing things that you wouldn't have imagined in the original Splinter Cell. But, on one hand, that was great for gameplay. It made it for a great game, but it didn't really help in keeping it as a story game, because the story was quite forgettable. See where I'm going with this? Yeah? Now, here's where Splinter Cell can take a few leaves out of the Die Hard book, and maybe reprint a few from the original Splinter Cell. I know that these ramblings are just ramblings, and that they're very unlikely to happen, unless I have, by some sheer coincidence, completely guessed the entire framework of the next Splinter Cell, which I doubt. And I do doubt that there's going to be anyone at Ubisoft reading the article or listening to the video going, boss, you there, mate? Chris from Pure PlayStation has got a few good ideas. Should we take some notes? because that's not going to happen, ever. But here's what I would do. Bring Die Hard and Splinter Cell together. First up, take Sam Fisher's magic powers away and make him human again. Blacklist was supposed to be taking Sam back to his roots, but that was kind of optional. The appeal to a wider audience for Ubisoft meant we have to treat it like a game that could stand up to the day's standards. Back when Blacklist came out, third-person cover shooters were all the rage. And that meant, yeah, you could go stealth, but there was always the option to go loud. And that was a problem for me, personally, because I'm a lazy shit. Rather than try again, when my sneaking approach failed, I'd just go with the flow and pop in and out of cover while shooting bad guys, like in all the other third-person shooters. The beauty behind the original Splinter Cell was that it demanded you to think, if you failed, tough bloody shit. Run it again and try not to jeff it up next time. I remember you could be sat in one area for like an hour, maybe even longer, trying to figure out how to remain undetected and undead. Because Splinter Cell didn't have any of that magic regenerating health back in the day, and one freaked out guard would often be the end of your run. Remind you of a certain New York cop? Huh? Wink wink. In Die Hard, McClane had to be sneaky. He could have just gone and shot Hans in the head. He had the opportunity to do so when he was getting up and cosy in the air ducts. But he didn't. It's the scene where he's there writing the names on the arms. And if that was a modern video game scene, you'd probably have the hero blasting through the vents, dropping down, kicking ass, not writing down intelligence on his forearm. It's a big difference. Only in the most exceptional circumstances does McClane fire his gun, or guns. It's always a life and death moment. There's always a cost. In every shootout he's in, there's a price to be paid. When he takes out the Bruder, he gets a machine gun and a radio, but he gives away his existence. Before that, the terrorists had no idea he was running around. But now he's lost partly that element of surprise. And then when Hans sends Heinrich and Marco to come and look for John McClane, he kills them and then throws Marco out of the window, and he lands on Pal's police cruiser car, which then prompts the LAPD SWAT team to show up. And not very long after that, innocent policemen are being blown to hell with a rocket launcher. And in McClane's next shootout with Gruber, Carl, Fritz and Franco, it costs him his mobility. He has to run over broken glass to escape the bad odds he's ended up against. He bleeds heavily and he seemingly comes to terms with the fact that he might die. And in the process, he's also put his wife's life in danger, because there's a photo of him in Holly's office, and if the terrorists see that, then yeah, there's a connection, blah, blah, blah. The point is, actions have consequences in Die Hard land. In Blacklist, you can take a few bullets, hide for a moment, then go back to shooting everyone dead before doing some cool parkour shit and collecting points. Yeah, it's a stark contrast between the new age Sam Fisher and the one that always sounded like he'd been on the piss before missions. Bless you, Michael Ironside, and your lovely little voice. Next point. The story needs to stand up in today's world. I've played Blacklist and Conviction several times, but I can't tell you what the story was behind either of them. I think Conviction was something to do with Sam's daughter. Blacklist, I've no idea, to be honest. I know that a guy from an older game is now sort of part of the team, and it's quite it's a bit like a police procedural, you know, how it's set up with, you know, the team members in the big flying hub, but yeah, I couldn't tell you specifically. But it's the same with the Die Hard films. But with the newer entries, I can remember the original Die Hard word for word at this point, and even Die Hard 2 and 3 are memorable enough that I'd be able to tell you the finer points in detail. And I've watched them about the same amount of times I played the Splinter Cells, not overly. But if you asked me to tell you something about Die Hard 4, I'd probably say something like computers, car kills helicopter, McClane shoots himself to save the day. Die Hard 5, Russia, son with daddy issues. It's not very good. Yeah, they're not very memorable. They're poor. Splinter Cell doesn't need to fall into that trap again. The third time is not a charm. A decent story is needed. Give Splinter Cell a weighty story that we players can be invested in. The original games were a bit hard to follow when I played them as a child, but you need to remember they came out in the early 2000s. I must have been about 12, 13 years old when I first played a Splinter Cell game. I didn't know what all the adult themes were about and the political nature. I shouldn't have been playing the games. But yeah, playing them today it's a new experience. I recently played through Chaos Theory on the PC because Sony doesn't like backwards compatibility. Fuck you, Sony. And yeah, I understood it a lot better, and I could imagine our world existing around Sam Fisher's missions. You know, his world was within ours, and that was easy for me to sort of visualise. And it's the same with the original Die Hard film. Like, if I read that had happened 10 years ago in a newspaper, that was the story, cop saves hostages from terrorists in building, or a more punchier headline, you'd think that I'd be able to make one. It's my job. But no, I believed that without, for a second. I wouldn't doubt it. But if I saw on Facebook, car kills helicopter, OMG, as a video, and I watched that, I'd be crying fake news until Trump shook my hand. So yeah, Splinter Cell's story needs to be grounded in today's reality, but it needs to hold our attention and make us believe that our actions matter. It needs that special kind of structured focus that the early games did so well with. Which brings me on to my next point. Open world is not the way to go. No open world. No. Did you notice, I'm probably stretching a little bit here, I'm going to admit, but did you notice the decline in quality of the movies when John McClane was taken out of his structured levels and allowed to roam free? Die Hard 2 did it in a decent way, where it was more akin to a semi-open world, because it was just set in a really large airport with some little, locations scattered to the sides. In 3, McClane was free roam too much. And Die Hard 3 is still a really good film, but it's so far away from the original, it's kind of only Die Hard because John McClane is running the show and it's the brother of the original bad guy who is now the new bad guy. It could have been called anything and it would have still been decent. Die Hard 4 sees McClane go cross-country, and Die Hard 5 sends him to Russia. Their scores speak for themselves. I don't need to go any further. The more open it gets, the more poop it is. Not specific. I think it's only because they're Die Hard films. If they were something else, it'd be fine. But as the original Die Hard is the pinnacle, you've got this one tower, this one location, there's a big focus. But then the other films, I was going to say games, expand further and further. It sort of loses that initial scope that made everything so tense. It's hard to sort of keep what made Die Hard great there in the first place. I'm not saying we need to lock Sam Fisher up in a corridor, no. But I don't want him running around in a map as big as the one in Ghost Recon Wildlands. There needs to be a middle ground. Yeah, we can't have huge maps where it just doesn't feel, it feels like, oh, I'm just playing Far Cry or whatever in third person now and I can hide in shadows, great. No, it needs to be something like the Nakatomi Plaza. Come on, it has levels, for Christ's sake. I wouldn't expect a straight rip-off, but something akin to Hitman as an inspiration for the kind of levels I'd like to see in a Splinter Cell. Just not episodically. Give it me all in one go. Don't make me wait months for new levels. That's the wrong way to go. Or just give me a Nakatomi Plaza knockoff. I'd be happy with that, so long as there's a John McClane outfit that isn't locked behind some ridiculous gold elite operative Panther spy edition of the game. And finally, 24 frames a second, just like Die Hard. One of the reasons that Die Hard holds up so well today is that it runs at a flawless 24 frames a second. There's no judder, there's no screen tearing, just perfect performance. If Splinter Cell's developers can be brave enough to aim for 24 rather than the standard 30, because you can forget 60, that's not happening, then it'll no doubt hit the sweet spot when it comes to performance and visuals. I'm kidding. Obviously, it is. I'm just making a little joke. I couldn't resist bringing up the classic 30 frames a second is more cinematic, which is something that Ubisoft said when Unity was, Assassin's Creed Unity was coming out for the PS4 and Xbox and PC. And that was their reason behind 30 rather than going for 60. We all obviously know now it's because they couldn't even make it go at 30. So yeah, sorry, silly joke. If you got to that part and thought, like all the way through you're listening thinking, Chris is making some good points, and then you get to that and you go, oh my god, he's an arsehole. It was just a joke. But what do you think? Is this my one intelligent article for the entire year? Or is that yet to come? I only get one a year. Am I barking up the wrong trees? Or are you barking there with me? Have they been urinated on yet? Who knows? Comment below, comment on the website. I don't mind. You should definitely subscribe, like the video if you like it. If you don't like it, then you have the option to click dislike. That's your choice. I can't influence that, unfortunately. I prefer if you didn't, though. And yeah, check back with Pure PlayStation for more amazing video. This is not really a video, this is just a static image. Laziness.